Welcome to the South Asia Democratic Forum podcast. I'm your host, Tapas Kanti Baul. Today, we turn our attention to Nepal, a nation in the throes of a democratic political upheaval. In recent weeks, Nepal has witnessed a youth-led uprising, the resignation of Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, the torching of parliament, and the rise of Gen Z voices demanding systematic change. With the constitution under strain and the army stepping in to stabilize the situation and the appointment of the new interim head, Nepal stands at a critical juncture. To help us unpack the constitutional, political, and regional dimensions of this crisis, I am joined by Dr. Pramod Jaiswal, Research Director at the Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement, NIICE, a leading voice on South Asian geopolitics and Nepal's democratic trajectory. Welcome, Dr. Pramod.
Thank you.
So, could you briefly walk us through the events that led to the current crisis in Nepal?
Actually, recently, what happened is the youth, basically Gen Z, or you can say young generations, they're putting multiple videos of how the life of the political parties, politicians have changed, how their children have wonderful vacation in France, Paris, all over the world, and they're having luxurious life. But the life of the people is still same. Common people still suffer from poverty. They have not enough, facilities in terms of health and education, roads. So that was the comparison that was shown. So when it started, the political parties curbed on social media. They gave a different excuse that one has to register, and they gave a deadline. This registration was the request for registration of social media had been there since 2023, but right now they imposed that because they wanted to control the voices, like who is posting all those and all. So when this social media ban started, the youth, Gen Z, they called for a protest, and there was two demand now. One, remove ban on social media, and first the genuine or the original demand, that is to curb corruption. So on 8th of September, they gathered. Some said they were supposed to come at 11, but many people they gathered early morning, 9, 10, and by 12 noon they had reached the parliament. So some people say that there was infiltration of different groups, royalists, and even others. Even some other people are accused of, but there are no evidence yet because investigation has not even started. Because Gen Z are saying that they are not the one who initiate the violence. So on the first day, it was a very peaceful movement. Young students, all between 13 to 28, mostly around teen, they were shot dead, 19 of them killed. Now, never in the history of Nepal we have seen such a huge casualties in a single day. And that stormed similar protest around the country. Initially, it started in Kathmandu, in different parts. There was curfew imposed, then it spread in Pokhara, Bhairava, Biratnagar, Sunsari, and many other parts of the country. And curfew was also imposed in other parts because people were very angry. So now new demand emerged at the end of the day that Home Minister and Prime Minister also has to step down. This was the new demand that was added apart from the previous one. So the first day the Home Minister resigned. Social media ban was removed after a huge pressure on the Prime Minister because initially in the cabinet meeting he refused to do that, but the coalition partner Nepali Congress president he forced him. So social media ban was removed. Next day, early morning, when we get up, we see the Kathmandu is burning. All the houses of the major political party leaders are burned down. Curfew was imposed, but the protesters did not obey the curfew, and then they initially started with burning of the houses of all the major leaders. Almost like I think 50 top leaders of Nepal, maybe top 10 from each major party like Maoist or you can say Congress or UML. Their houses burned down, and then after that they started moving to public property, which is like parliament, then all the ministries, Supreme Court, House of the President, House of the Prime Minister, and several others, including the business houses of those businessmen who are associated with one party or the other, or schools of the political parties. So that is how it ended
I
with
heard
this.
that even Supreme Court was also attacked, right?
Yes, Supreme Court was also burned down. And finally, the prime minister had to step down. Even the minister quarters and every house were attacked. So a Nepal army was mobilized to rescue them. A Nepal army initial aim was just to save the life. So you can see that there massive destruction on the property. But the life of the major leader, almost everyone was saved.
Yeah,
So that is
because
how.
this is the motto of law enforcement agency and also military forces, that you have to step up whenever there is a threat to the public life and their property. So
Yeah.
that's
So
how it ended up.
finally, yeah. So finally, it ended up with the resignation of the prime minister, but things were very severe. Then finally, they came with few demands that they want an interim constitution, interim government. Initially,
Mhm.
there were also demand for change in constitution and all, but they realized it's very complicated, so they requested for interim government. Election within 6 months that has been accepted. At the moment, we have already got the interim government. We have the prime minister Susila Karki, which is backed by Genji. House is dissolved. That was the demand. Election is called in 6 months. I think March first week is the deadline. So now things are in order, things are in control, but the traditional parties are objecting to the idea of dissolution of the parliament. They say it's unconstitutional. The senior leader of all the major parties and all the senior ministers, they're still under yesterday. Nepal army asked that they are free to move now. Initially, they had also taken their cell phones for their security and safety. I think since last night, people are now trying to normalize themselves. But still, many feel threat, so they're still there in the army centers.
There are a lot of immediate triggers and deeper structural causes that I understand. You said that corruption allegation, banning of social media, and everything that actually triggered the Gen Z led protests. But what do you think is the most important of the triggers? Because, in last 15, 16 years, Nepal has seen most of the governments were changed. No other country has seen that kind of change. So, what do you think is the immediate trigger and the most important deeper challenges that the Gen Z are facing, or the citizens of Nepal will face?
There's massive frustration among the youth in Nepal, and Nepal has always been unstable. If you look at Nepal, you find that there was 7 constitution in 70 years,
Mhm.
and then we had around like 10 prime minister in 10 years. So it's quite unstable. But with instability, there's also massive frustration because there is lack of governance, massive corruption, and it's systematic and so open that people are too frustrated. I'll give you one example. Like in Nepal, we have proportionate representation and we have direct election, first past the post. So in proportionate, they are supposed to nominate women or marginalized people and different communities who cannot come to the forefront. So all the seats of those proportionate were finally going to the minister's wife, their children, their family members, relatives, and it's very open. They're doing it very bluntly open. So this is one you can see there is systematic corruption. People were really frustrated where they had lost the hope because the ambassador post was based on sharing of power or horse trading. Everything was on transactional. So people had no hope, and that's why there was massive migration around outside the country as laborer or those who can afford. They used to go as a student, or all kind of migration started. Even those were not smooth because getting all those government facilities like passport and all are very troublesome here. So it's like it was not very easy life for the youth, and that led to massive frustration. So I think one of the major factor was frustration that was there among the youth. People are very angry because if you look at the videos and all, like when the houses were burned, people are like very excited. I mean, they're very happy. That kind of sentiment we could see, though many were not involved, but they're happy that what is happening is all violence, criminal activities. I mean, many of us were shattered by the way ministries and public property are burned down. But when none of them sympathize with the politician's house being burned, so that is the situation. Former prime minister, the way they are thrashed, they are abused, they put on fire. These are very disturbing pictures, and we realize that people have such an anger that they're enjoying, they're celebrating as if they have won, life will change, and something like a huge kind of liberation. So that is a huge anger, frustration was seen on the street. Apart from that, obviously, there are many factors. I think one can be geopolitical factor because KP Oli was a communist prime minister. He just went to China. He met Putin. He was standing with Xi Jinping, and many of the people were not very happy. So externally, it was not a good situation. Internally, as well, KP Wali was very unpopular. He was making everyone in his own party very unhappy. He was taking authoritarian decisions. So many of his young leaders had quit. Again, there's massive frustration in each party because you can see that in 10 years we have seen the same people being minister multiple times. Almost everyone had been a prime minister for 4 5 times. KP Sharma Oli, or you can say Prachanda or Sher Bahadeva, and they were coming to power again. So there was no sign that in next 5 or 10 years we can see new faces. So within the party, youth party people within the party, the youth leaders within the party were also very frustrated with no hope. They were not able to break that barrier that was there among the senior leaders. They tried very hard, but they were not able to do that. So I think that is also one of the major demands. This senior leader has to leave. They have to resign. They have to, not only resign, get out of this political system where the space for the youth is generated, where the youth voice is felt, where they can hear about and understand new demands, aspirations, new world that is emerging. So there is a massive frustration within the party. So geopolitical and we can say inter-party conflict, inside the party conflict, and the role of youth, a frustrated mass that exists. I think there are different factors that are behind it at the moment.
Yes, well, while I agree that the change is required, is necessary, but also I personally don't think that violence is necessary to make these kind of changes. That's why democracy is the powerful institution, right? So if I compare the situation with Sri Lanka and what happened in Bangladesh, you see that if experienced political leaders are obliterated from the scenario, then there is also a vacuum. Like in Sri Lanka, after the same kind of riot and everything, what happened is they had to bring back an old veteran to steady the boat, and under his leadership they reached into a steady place. And then there was this election and things like that, whereas Chief Justice Shushila Karki, she was a successful Chief Justice of Nepal, and there is no allegation of corruption, nepotism against her. That is very much clear. But there are legal questions raised against her appointment. How does this align or conflict with constitutional provisions? And there is also allegation that she is closer to India. And how do you address that concern as well?
Yes, there are constitutional challenges because this force has not come through legal process or you can say elections. This is the overthrow of government, and this was the major question, and that delayed the formation of the government because we have a constitution and then we have elected bodies, we have every set there. So if KP Sharma only resign and pave way, then again the new government should be formed from that parliament. So that is the one of, that is a legal process. But what other way arguing is that this is not a normal scenario. If you want to go through legal process, then we have to change the constitution. And do we have time for that, or we want to protect the constitution? So those who support the constitution and those who do not support the constitution both has to come and compromise, and they realize that maybe they can make some adjustment because if the new generation or you can say Gen Z would ask, okay, we'll rewrite the constitution, that was possible because the way they had come in a strong way through violent method, though, that was possible because they're very strong and the situation was that. Other was that, okay, let's make a small adjustment and then save the constitution and have a short transition and then have a safe landing where constitution is saved, the democracy is saved. That is one the other option. In the meantime, there are also different groups who are non-democratic were also trying to benefit from that, where we can say royalists were there. In the current constitution, we are a republic. We don't have space for the monarch. So those forces are also trying to benefit from this chaos that existed, and that forced both parties to make a speedy or you can say quick decision. Otherwise, they might have thought going for a rewriting of constitution. But if they had gone for rewriting of constitution, the whole preamble would have been changed. The whole nature of constitution would have been changed. Probably we would have lost secularism. Probably we would have lost republic. And that was the fear, that because the students' demand was not to change the constitution. They were happy with democracy. They were happy with secularism. They were happy with federalism. They were happy with whatever exists in the constitution. Their only change, only demand was corruption exists. That has to be improved. The leader who are there since ages, they have to be removed. There should be reform or some changes in the constitution, which is debatable. So that's why both parties agreed that okay, let's use the same constitution, let's find a way out. And there was a way out where president said that there might be some legal issues. I'm not a legal expert, but they agreed that okay, let's save the constitution and take 6 months as a maybe different, but go for that. You're muted.
Thank you. I have a quick question. Does Nepal constitution has a provision to bar the leaders to get nominated or elected for more than 2 times? Is there any barrier like that?
No, there are no such barrier, but this is the demand they are asking, that maybe in the new constitution they'll maybe probably ask for 2 terms. These things are debated. A second is that they're also asking for maybe having a directly elected head of the state that can make it more stable. And once they are stable, they'll not have to horse trade. They don't have to, get into corrupt practices to sustain power. They will have stability. So for 5 years they can do whatever they want. And if there is directly elected president, or you can say prime executive head, then even one who is popular without spending much can be a head of state and can deliver. So there are different provisions that they are asking for. Even they are
How do
asking to
you,
make.
I mean, is there any formula to stop family members getting the nomination from different sets or getting into the political party positions? Is there any provision in
No, there's not
we're
such
talking right now?
position. They're not legally there. It's not. No one constitution do not bar anyone from entering into politics, getting elected, whether they are a family member of
But whether
any.
Gen Z and whether the citizens of Nepal are talking about this, that they need to introduce some sort of barrier.
What they're asking is that by this movement, there will be huge pressure among the political leaders to promote their own children, because that is what they're doing. It was nepotism. Legally,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not allowed,
that's
but
that's everywhere, and
legally,
not only promoting them. I have seen that their lavish lifestyle being, I mean, everywhere on social media.
legally,
Whereas,
not even corruption is not allowed, but
yeah,
they
yeah,
use it.
absolutely.
So similarly, nepotism, while the youth were not promoted, the moment they were challenged, the senior leader of different parties used to have unholy alliances. I mean, the communist and Democrat, communist and communist, the
Mhm.
moment they were at threat, they were joining hands. But on national policy, on the issue of national interest, they were divided. So they're not looking at their national interest, they're looking at their self-interest. When their power was at risk, they are united. If there is issue of corruption, they are united. Now,
Mhm.
when there is, I mean, not a single party. Every party was nominating their family members in proportionate. It's not like
They wanted
one
to keep
party
it
was.
within their house.
Yes. So that was the situation there. And in every party, the youth, or you can say next generation, do not have the courage to stand, because the moment we stand, you can be isolated, you can be out of those portfolios, you can never
Mhm.
rise as a leader in that party. Very difficult situation. So one of the biggest achievement you can say of this violence is that it filled fear among the politicians, that people can revolt against you. You can be legally correct, but that will not save you from that. That is the only signal that they could send, that legally it can be one factor, but we're not talking about legality, because
Uh,
law, you have used the law.
Another thing people forget is everybody knows what was the economical situation of Oli and Prochand was. They were not from rich families.
Yes, I mean,
So,
that is what they showed
mhm,
on the videos, that 20 years ago they were of this nature and now they are having this,
yeah,
and it was like, I mean, it's not only the common people, even the party. I mean, who knows Oli and Prachanda, and they were very close. It's their party workers, right? They are the
right.
one who are visiting their houses every day. So they
Hmm.
have seen how their life had changed, and that was disheartening for the people. Second is that
True.
even they had huge judiciary. I mean, forget about legality. When they control corruption control agency, when they control Supreme Court, when they trade all the ambassador jobs, it's very open in Nepal. Everyone can
Right.
see clearly say that half of the posts are going to the business communities or those who can afford it. Not everyone is from the foreign ministry who is promoted as ambassador, and all those is for party. They fund the party or directly indirectly. That is how it's traded. So that is what was very challenging. Even when the diplomats bureaucrats are retired, they are rehired on the similar lucrative, expecting something in return. So I think that was a very clear, open corruption that used to exist. So it was
Right.
very rampant, which was uncontrollable at the
But
moment.
what do you think about, like I asked you the question as well, that what do you think about this proposition that the present head of the interim government, she has a good connection with India? What do you say about it?
People speculate that she has good relation with US and India because she studied in India. So people expect that she has good relations. And since she was Chief Justice and after retirement, like US is one of the powers. So obviously US engaged with everyone. So people believe that uh, actually they come with a conspiracy theory that US, or you can say West, or Democrats are behind it because Oli was in China. He participated in a parade which was against Japan, and he was standing with Putin and Kim Jong-un and Xi Jinping. So there is speculation that since he was of that nature, the Democrats and all united, and that's why people believe that probably the current prime minister, who is
Mhm.
supported by Gen Z, will have good support from the Democratic parties, Democratic countries, which is West, US, India, and maybe few more. So with that speculation, one can speculate that she will have good relation with India and other countries, and probably not good relation with China. One surprising, or you can say, very new thing that is happening, that for the first time, His Holiness Dalai Lama has also wished the Prime Minister of new Prime Minister of Nepal, which has not happened in the past. Probably one can expect that, believe that this is non-political, so that can be one reason because all the previous PM were political. But the former Prime Minister of Tibet, or you can say Taiwan, all those countries also have shown a kind of excitement with the current change. So I think there are more speculations that probably in days to come there'll be better relation with democratic countries, maybe challenging times between Nepal and China.
So, how do you see India and China responding to the crisis? But what are the geopolitical stakes? Because you see, crisis in Sri Lanka, crisis in Bangladesh, crisis in Nepal. So, where does the geopolitics stand right now?
I think since this prime minister is only for 6 months, who is supposed to hold elections, those who like the current government, who enjoys good relations, probably will push for uh, better changes in the institutions that can have the corruption control, democratic reforms. For example, maybe we can see a draft committee which can control corruption. That is likely. Some changes in the constitution that can safeguard the democratic values. One can also speculate maybe China will also continue to engage, but 6 months might be difficult. But maybe China will wait for the new election where again the traditional parties are likely to come back. If not come back, at least they'll be able to balance relation with every country because the current regime do not have to balance because they are not willing to go for election next round, so they're not liable. Anything that do, they don't have to be accountable tomorrow. But political parties are accountable. They want to have balance. At the same time, different geopolitical players engage with different political parties in Nepal. Now,
Mhm.
probably left parties and China will have deeper relations they had in the past. So maybe through that route, because in Nepal, almost 60% of voters are left. So maybe China will wait for that time that let the people vote, and then we'll have favorable people. So 6 months, maybe they can relax, wait how things are evolving. But other countries might engage there, like for example, US has MCC, they might speed up, or maybe other countries they might feel that it's a time for them to increase investment, expand, because when China, one of the major power, is not there, maybe they will try to fill that vacuum. So I think this geopolitical competition will be seen in next 6 months.
Right. Now, let's get back to Gen Z movement. How do you interpret this movement? Do you think it is a democratic awakening or a sign of institutional collapse? And one thing particularly that did they go back to the school or are they still on the streets? And how do you tackle this violence?
When I observe this situation, I have come to the conclusion that probably Gen Z were not aware that they will land up in a situation that they have landed today, because they had only prepared for 3 days of protest, 2 or 3 days of protest. So I think they're not expecting what this outcome, that they will win, or the situation will be in their favor in such a short time. They thought it would be peaceful protest and it will take maybe a few months. Gradually, they'll be able to hold. Like in Sri Lanka, it was slow and non-violent. So probably they might have taken that route. But in this whole process, the role of different actors, made a favorable environment where on the first day, massive violence by the state was one of the reasons that mobilized more people, not only students, but everyone came on the street, including the different groups that were there who want to benefit from the situation. So they came to the situation. Luckily, they were able to handle it properly and they were able to make the situation in their favor. Otherwise, it was also possible that Nepal could have got army rule, Nepal could have got monarchy, any kind of situation, which
Even one thing I want to point it out, that I have noticed that both in the case of Sri Lanka and Nepal, just after this change, they went back to their home, respective homes, and they understood that violence is not the answer. And that's why we didn't see any rampant violence after the initial 3 to 4 days. What happened in Bangladesh was still the mobocracy is continuing. You may have noticed. People are not happy with the present government, even though they claim what happened in Bangladesh is a result of meticulous design, which means that, for example, in Nepal's and Sri Lanka's case, it was spontaneous, as you said. They had only 3 days plan and they don't know what to do next. But in Bangladesh, the interim government and the students are saying repeatedly that they knew that this is going to happen and they had the preparation. But in spite of that, you see the rampant mobocracy and the lives of citizens and minorities and everyone is at stake right now in Bangladesh. There is no peace in the country. I just wonder why. What is the change? Even though they are from the same South Asian region, but there is huge, I would say, mentality a difference among the citizens of these countries.
I think if this Gen Z had not been able to hold the situation and if it had taken longer, those
Mhm.
anti-social elements might have entered, radicalized it, and created more chaos, more killing, and make it very complicated. So when it was quick in Sri Lanka, it was slow, but it made them aware that situation is alarming and they should be prepared. It was same here. Like leaders, they were able to realize the intensity of the problem. In Bangladesh, I think Hasina was not aware. She thought she could crush it. At the same time, since it took long, different element entered into it, radicalize it, make it very complicated. I think that might be one of the reasons, but I'm not known Bangladesh very well. But in Nepal, what happened? The students were very clear, they negotiated, and the other people were also very active. I mean, you can say like social civil society, media, they also supported the students. On the first day, because it was the state's mishandling of the situation, so it stood strongly. Second day, there was massive violence, but still the media and people did not isolate the protesters. They could have blamed them for all the violence, and people could have got scared. Many of them we were scared that how can you support a violence. It was very a scary situation because things were burning around. Supporting them was like we are also one of those who burnt it. So it was a very difficult situation, but still what happened is that people said no. In spite of that, we have to find a solution because it has to come down. So how can so people move in a positive, constructive direction where everyone come together? You will be surprised to know that people in each political party, they did not retaliate with statements. They're quiet. They understand, and this shows that these kind of voices against corruption or the frustration was also within the party. That's why they were silent because they're not objecting to what happened, except the violence. They're objecting that everything that happened is correct. It was for a cause. So that is the major reason that they did not retaliate. Even right now they are saying that okay, it's unconstitutional, but they're not saying, none of them, that the demands are not genuine. None of them are saying that no, our leader were not corrupt. None of the political leaders have said that, or and none of the political leaders have also come among the people at the moment. It's almost a week. So this clearly shows that they have understood the situation and they realize that retaliating will bring further loss to both parties, state and political parties, and the people will suffer. So I think that kind of realization was there among every community, even the army. I mean, army could have used that situation in their favor and have army rule, but I think army realized that how long can they last. So that was the realization. Again, army could have handed over to the monarchy, but then realized the
The
situation.
overall thing was that everybody understood that we do not fuel the violence.
Yes,
We
they realized
retaliate.
that if they fuel, they realized that even if they fuel for some time, it will be temporary, and this will
Right.
only bring disaster.
True. because violence begets violence only.
That's true. I mean,
So
if monarchy would have come, then they would have retaliated, or even other. So it would have brought more violence. Everything was destroyed. All
absolutely,
palaces.
absolutely.
I don't know what is
The,
left.
the major thing what you said is that the Gen Z believes in the constitution. They
Yes,
believe in the democratic system. Actually, that I would say is a major difference. You see, and none of the parties, as you said, wanted to fuel the situation, further the violence, and that's why you were getting back to the peaceful solution slowly. So I'll ask you the last question for today, which is the what are the possible scenarios for Nepal in the next 6 months? What do you think?
I think like today the prime minister has taken over formally, and she has announced that she will be working on the corruption control and all issues. So that is, I think, there is huge pressure from the Gen to create a committee that can look after the corruption of many of the senior leaders. I think that is one of the major steps that might be taken by the PM, because that is what Gen came for. And if they're not able to deliver on that, then what is the whole purpose of this movement? That is one. Second, they have promised that they will hold election within 6 months. 6 months is less time and also more time. Less time in the sense that we have festival and winter. So first few months will take them to warm up and prepare. Then they will have, so they don't have much time to deliver on many issues. So if they start preparing for election today, then only they can have election on time. So there is less time. So agenda and an election are the two major demands. So I think we can expect that in days to come. But again, like the younger leaders of each political party have started raising voices that all this that happened is unconstitutional. Dissolving the parliament was not necessary. So they are coming with the voices. I don't know how strongly will they come. If they come strongly, because they are getting united, the traditional parties, Nepali Congress, UML, and even Maoist are trying to come closer. And if they unite and start come on the street and try to really create obstacle to Gen Z and the government, then they might create a kind of rift and conflict and all. But if they use those same agenda and not come through conflict, but you prepare for the election, showing that okay, we made mistake, now we are correcting ourselves, and these are unconstitutional. So we want to correct ourselves and address those issues. Will support the government in whatever positivity they'll bring. So I think if they go in that direction, then I think it will be smooth, because the government will also not make them, they do not antagonize itself, and then they'll try to make election on time. Because later on, if there's a rift between political parties and government, then government might make it excuse that there is no law and order problem, and they will delay the election. So finally that rift should not be there. The government has a mandate of having the election. So political parties should also make a cooperate and support the government and have a safe transition. That is also in their interest.
Right. So thank you, Dr. Jaiswal, for your insights into this critical moment in Nepal's history. As we have heard, the road ahead is uncertain, but not without hope. The resilience of Nepal's youth, the strength of its constitutional framework, and the commitment of its civil society will all be tested in the days to come. We urge all political actors, civil society leaders, and international partners to prioritize dialogue, uphold democratic norms, and work together to restore peace and stability in Nepal. This has been the SADF podcast. I am Tapas Kanti Baul. Thank you for listening and stay tuned for more conversations on democracy and human rights in South Asia.
Thank you.